Hi, so my name is Kiana. I am a licensed realtor in the state of Delaware. I service I service the entire state, but most of my business is relocation and client transitions. So out-of-state relocations, anyone who's moving for jobs or military, or people buying second homes and investment properties. However, this is our buyer negotiation boot camp, and this is specifically for either first-time home buyers coming to our area or for people who are entering the Delaware market. So there are a lot of people who, when you come from different markets, you understand like real estate does have some fluctuations depending on the demographic, but I personally am here to speak directly about negotiating within Delaware, our Delaware contract, and some special details, basically, relating specifically to our market. So I'm actually going to minimize myself and we can get started. So as I said, this is the buyer negotiation workshop or boot camp. And today's objective is for you to feel confident to negotiate no matter whom you choose. I'm a big proponent that you should interview realtors and just make sure that their work ethic and all of that meshes with you. However, I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable it should be a win-win. You shouldn't feel like you've given up so much stuff or you've had so many things that are negotiated that don't seem to be in your favor. So I want to arm you with information, and therefore when you go to your next phase, which will be shopping or discovering the area, that you will feel better equipped to move forward. So as I said, my name is Kiana. I am the owner of Charming Belle Homes. I am currently brokered with Keller Williams Realty. Before real estate, however, I was an employee of the state of Delaware as an analyst. So my main job was to assist with new construction with around 2008, 2010 with the Great Recession. We are supposed to help with foreclosures and really just helping homeowners get back on their feet. And I also helped with offender reentry to reduce recidivism for inmates. I also assisted with the mental hospitals, with healthcare insurance. So I've got a wide array of my background. And what actually ended up happening is in 2017, my father passed away. And my background, like I said, I'm originally from Jersey. I moved here in 2000 when my parents retired, and I went back to go to college. And when I came back, my dad was sick. So I bought my house in Dover, and just with the whole experience after he passed, I really wanted to make sure that I continued his legacy. And our background, actually, like I said, we're originally from Jersey, but my parents actually were Section 8 landlords in Delaware. We had scattered sites since like 1981. We have a vacation rental in Florida. We owned a trucking company and a laundromat, and my grandparents even owned a triplex, a multifamily. And my great-grandparents lived across the street. My aunts and uncles lived on a couple of the floors, and my grandparents bought the house across the street. So my family has been very big on wealth building and just making sure that we are presenting that information to those who need it, who just need a leg up to help. And I wanted to continue that legacy. So I genuinely am passionate about helping families level up. I do what I call wraparound services. So I make sure that whether or not it's before a transaction, after closing, I'm still here. If I don't know it, I'll look into it. I just want to make sure that I'm delivering the level of care that I would have wanted to receive, and I treat people the way I want to be treated. And then a fun fact, outside of the office, I have a SPCA rescue named Layla, and I am caretaker for my nonverbal autistic godson in the summers. And he also has ABA therapy during the week, so that doesn't interfere with my work schedule. I just like to let people know if I'm if I'm available, on other times of the day. I try to make sure that I'm balancing my work life responsibilities. So I don't personally have kids, but I do care for my nonverbal autistic godson. So the clients that tend to work with me or my company tend to need me to specialize and give a little bit of extra care. So, for example, Britt and Josh, they actually are active duty military parents to 3 young boys, one also being special needs, and they have purchased and sold multiple homes with me. The most recent being this home that, oh no, actually the most recent was their investment property. So most recently they sold one of their homes in Dover, moved to California, PCS to California, and they came back to Delaware and bought their home, and sight unseen, they never saw it, and then they ended up purchasing their investment property because, like I said, their goal is to make sure that their children are taken care of, being active duty, and they wanted to make sure that they were able to leave something for their boys. So their investment property, I connected them with their property manager. We renovated it. We've connected with financing. So when I say we do wraparound services, we genuinely assist from start to finish, even post-closing. So I know, like, I've gone through a lot of information, so let's just go over some of the misconceptions that people talk about. So I wanted to pop back up on the screen just so you can actually see my face and we can go over these. So some people say I shouldn't show my emotions when I'm negotiating. In reality, yes, it's natural. If you see something you like and be excited about it, I don't want anyone to feel, oh. So yes, it is natural to not want to, like when you're shopping for a car, you don't want to show you're excited. It's natural to feel a connection when you actually make that connection. However, just like it's overwhelming for you, the seller also feels the same way. So in this day and age, some sellers actually have video and audio. If I'm aware, I'll tell you. But for the most part, I want you to be open and honest. Any person that you work with is going to want your feedback. And you do want to have an emotional connection to the area, at least, in the house, because that's going to be your home. You want to feel as if you're going to pay your, monthly mortgage, that you're actually getting something that you could make home. So the next one is, the people around me are great advice givers when it comes to real estate. You should always trust your people that are closest to you. I am definitely all about making sure that your family is feeling comfortable about the area that you're in, and you really want to make sure that you do include them. However, sometimes some people, even with the best intentions, don't necessarily arm you with the right information. So I have to be transparent and say the realtor, the lender, and your attorney are also on your side. We're on your team. And if you ever feel like your realtor it's like you're just a number, then that's just not the right partnership that you want to work with. You want to make sure, at least for me, I make sure that my clients feel and understand that I want them to be happy. I do not care which home you select. My goal is to give you the best negotiations possible, and I want to make sure that you have realistic expectations of this market. Some people have purchased a year or two ago are not experiencing the same type of market as people experiencing now, versus people who purchased their homes, 20, 30 years ago. Laws have changed, lending has changed, requirements have changed. So I always say include your family. At least with me, when I purchased my home, I didn't include my family until after the inspections. It's really just your comfort level. Some people include them in the showings. Sometimes it gets a little difficult to actually schedule the showing. So we do offer remote options, virtual, depending on how quick or fast the market is going. There may or may not even be time to get everyone together to wait till the weekend. So just making sure that, yes, include your decision makers always, and then include the ancillary people that you just want to keep informed. Include them when you feel comfortable to move forward. So this one, home buying is scary. I actually agree, but let's go through it. So it's only scary because it's something that's unfamiliar. So like I said, I purchased my home in 2013, and I went through multiple realtors. I went through multiple houses, and once I got to the right team, it was so easygoing. So it can be scary if you are not armed with the right information, but the right team will make you feel confident in moving forward with the process. So for example, this is a photo of one of my clients, and we actually initially were looking at a log home, and when we got the home inspection, they just did not feel comfortable with it. So we eventually moved forward into a different home. We negotiated to get out of that deal and moved on to a different home that they ended up raising their family in. And so even though obstacles may arise, we're still here with you every step of the way. And I just want to make sure I communicate that it's normal to feel whatever emotions you're feeling. Just making sure you're communicating that and making sure that if there's any issues where you're not comfortable and wanting to move forward or want to take a step back, we'll go at your pace. So this one is big. It's, I have to worry about getting screwed over. So this is actually one of the more common type of concern that buyers have. And thankfully, I believe in 2019 or 2021, the contract was actually changed. The state of Delaware contract went through an entire review with like state attorneys, the local board association, and in reality, it actually is written to protect the buyers even more. So we didn't go over that in our consultation about what the actual contract says, but it starts with basically the terms of what you're willing to pay, where it's located, the parcel number, and the parties. Then it goes into what items are included, and that's all on the first page. The next page talks about finances, where you talk about your lender, the dates that you're going to do your mortgage application, the date that you're going to do closing, and the date that you're going to get your final contingencies or your final commitment. And then the next couple of pages is talking about inspections, depending if you're in city limits, out of city limits, if you're going to get a general housing inspection, if you're going to get mold, or if you're going to get like a fireplace or a shed or a swimming pool, if you have a septic or a well. That's what those pages are all saying. And long story short, that's what we call contingencies. So in other states, the contract is an as-is or buyer beware type of situation. In Delaware, you have two opportunities to either renegotiate or go back to the drawing board. One is at your due diligence. So in order to meet your due diligence period, there will be dates in the contract that say there's a date that you're going to get your home inspection completed and submitted the report to the seller. There's another date where the seller has to respond to you. And the final date is when the seller has to, and you have to, as the buyer, come to an agreement on what you want. They're clearly outlined. Whenever you go into contract, my team, we will send you a summary email. It's got all that in there. The next one is if you're getting financing, it's if you're getting an appraisal. And it's contingent on the appraisal. That's what we call it. So the seller up front knows that if it doesn't appraise at a certain amount, we'll either renegotiate. If it doesn't appraise, depending on your financing, sometimes that appraisal has to stick for 6 months. So it's really never detrimental. It's more so like, can we work through it? Can we not work through it? But that's our goal. Our goal is to make sure that we let you know up front what everything's about. And then, we'll kind of take our next steps to see which way it goes. But basically, as long as you as the buyer are not at fault for adhering to those contingencies, and meaning once we go into contract, continue to work with your lender, provide them every single document that they need in a timely manner. We will make sure we make those dates, and we will make sure everything gets taken care of. So this is probably the biggest one, especially in the days of post-COVID. So a lot of people are very concerned about the housing values. People are paying over. People, if their house isn't appraising, meaning like big ranges, like they're 40,000 below appraisal, or it's so hot the home prices are rising. The bubble's got to burst at some point. And so this is where I come in, because like I said, my job before real estate, I actually was a part of the programs that were incentivized to get buyers to buy during the Great Recession. So if you can kind of see in 2008, so let's actually backtrack. Back in the 1980s to, 1991, there was basically a steady decline, and then you saw it totally go into a recession. That's not what happened in 2008. So in 2008, what we had is we saw back to the leveling of the 80s, so like what everyone was used to, but there were certain predatory lender practices that just were not adhering to what would have been good for the buyer. So that is why you see such a drastic change. And even like they said, the home price change in the last 5 recessions, even the areas in the green, those are still recessions. Those are still, a recession is legally when you have 2 quarters repetitive that are seeing a decline. That's all a recession is. So what I personally try to communicate is that what's happening now is, let's say a buyer was pre-approved for $500,000. We were shopping for homes at $400,000. People were also intentionally listing the houses lower. So when you see a buyer paying 30 grand above list price, remember they could afford 400,000, but we're paying 330 on that 400. So that's the difference between the recession, the Great Recession, versus what's happening post-COVID, because where the lending practices have changed, where they can no longer get the same debt to income requirements to qualify. So that $500,000, let's say in 2021, would have been the equivalent of giving someone $1 million back in 2008. There's just no way to certify and qualify that this person could have actually afforded that based on the underwriting practices that they were implementing. So since then they've changed. It is going to be more stringent for the underwriting for the front end for people, but it's for a good reason. I will pause here and kind of let you read through that, but it's basically repeating what I just said. It's not an apples to apples comparison, and it's the contributing circumstances that were implemented with it's the Dodd-Frank Act, but basically the Wall Street reform. They've done major overhauls with all of the lending practices, including the disclosures. So one thing for sure is 3 days before closing, you have to know exactly what your out-of-pocket cost is. And that's not negotiable. So back in 2008, they had all this leeway that they could do. People were just signing things they didn't understand. Now they have tightened up the underwriting requirements so much. So let's say we're supposed to close on a Friday. That means you have to sign this disclosure by Tuesday. If you don't sign it by Tuesday at 5 p.m. or Tuesday at 11:59, whatever time it is, if you sign it Wednesday morning, you're not going to close Friday. It does not matter if you saw it. They are very stringent. This is another important thing to understand is I have so many people asking me, well, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Where are you getting these buyers? So what's happening is you have people who do need to move. So whether they're military, whether they are, let's say they were in college or they have breakups or whatever happened in their life, there are people out there that genuinely need to move. A lot of them, some people are either getting divorced, their children have aged out of their house and it's just too much because now we've had time to sit and be with one another. There are some people who want to switch to completely remote jobs and their house, temporarily could accommodate. But if they're going to think the next year or two, they're going to be working from home, they're like, look, I need an actual office. My kids are home. I need them to get away from me. So buyer demand is there. And I know a lot of sellers are concerned about, well, can they find something? So I always make sure I tell people, don't just be a part of the crowd and the trends. Make sure it matches your lifestyle. There are a lot of people, at least for my clients, they're relocating from out of state. They're coming from California, Jersey, New York, Philly, and Maryland. Some of it is they just want better opportunity, and property taxes that are in the other states are just 2 or 3 times the amount in Delaware. So financially, if they can save $1,000 by just buying over the border, they can do that. So it's really just based on your personal lifestyle choices. So this is another important aspect. I'll gloss over it, but basically when you're looking at the chart, the 2020 recession for employment is different than the 2007 recession for employment. So if you look at right here, this is talking about the months. So in 2007, it saw multiple months of unemployment. In 2020, it only saw this is what was 12. So at the lowest, it was at 2. So this is a percent of job loss. So this went from down to 6% in over this amount of time. Whereas in 2020, it went down 15% for that short amount of time. And we bounced back up. So that's kind of like the way economics, when you get into like the nitty gritty, when we talk about gross domestic product and all that stuff, all of these are indicators to the Federal Reserve about what they're going to set the rates at. It's also going to be an indicator about housing and job growth as well as inflation. So all the interest rates, everything to do with housing, it all ties in together. But this is another example to us why 2020 is different than 2007. And this is another example of unemployment, but it's specific to the pandemic influenced jobs. So if you actually look, let's say the first part, the leisure and hospitality. So like hotels and Airbnbs, things like that. From February to April, which would have been the height of the pandemic, we saw it going negative. And then by May, there's a recovery that's showing a positive. So it's kind of hard to like really go through all the nuances of it. But basically, what we're looking at is all of these portions of unemployment versus what's actually happening in that point in time. So when we're talking about unemployment, we have to talk about specialty clauses. Let's talk about certain industries. There are certain industries that did not see this impact at all, whereas like the professional services, like, you know, healthcare, spa, things like that, things that are people-centered, they actually were impacted more. So there's actually examples of nurses that, because they were getting so much overtime pay, or when they switched over to being travel nurses, it actually impacted sometimes their ability to get qualified for the mortgage. There are some people who lost out on houses even though they were in healthcare, because the way the underwriting rules work, versus there were a lot of retired people that purchased because their income was steady. So every situation is different. That's why I always say it's best to, you know, you get information from people, but you want to make sure that you understand what's apples to apples. And sometimes your situation is not the same as everyone else's. So this is again what I was talking about affordability. So let's just show, so like this is the 1970s versus the 80s, and we now are going down to like 2010. So it's a lot lower in 2010, 2008 era versus 2020, we're going right back to stable. So let's just consider this trend line as the basis. So this is why 2008, 2010 was a lot different than 2020. Versus we saw major growth in the 80s. So back when you're talking about people who purchased in the 90s, it's still coming down. So we still had influx, we still had people shopping, but what's stable for us is more so this trend line. So we just stabilized. So this is the graphic that I really want to spend time on to understand what all this actually means. So let's say for you, you're telling us that you feel comfortable paying $3,000 a month on your mortgage. That's for everything. Principal, mortgage insurance, interest, taxes. You could send $3,000 a month. So in 1985, average interest rate was 12.22%. Let's just say that. That would have bought a $287,000 house to pay $3,000 a month. In 2000, that same $3,000 would have bought a $397,000 house if the interest rate was 8.29%. Again, same $3,000. So now let's get to the pandemic. People were saying, I can afford $3,000 a month. That is a $500,000 mortgage because the interest rates were at 5.95%. So what happened with my buyers, I'll say this. If you told me you could afford, if you got this $3,000 mortgage, you most likely could have afforded $3,300. I was telling buyers, because what happens is they will reassess your mortgage. They'll reassess your property value. They'll adjust your escrows. So that $2,982 may turn to $2,994 or $3,000, you know, in a year or two. So let's stay well within your budget, because you also want to understand that if you do an addition, they might reassess your property taxes. It might go up, but your interest rate when they're fixed, so at 5.95, we saw interest rates down to like 3% back when I was shopping in 2013. So let's say if it ever goes down that low, what you want to do is buy now what you can afford. And the one thing that I think is to everyone's detriment is they choose to wait. But the only way the interest rates going down actually helps you is if you already own a home. So this person who paid 5.95% and the interest rates go down to 4%, let's say they're saving another $200-300 a month, they can already afford $3,300. So let's say in that same time, they may also get a raise. They may also get other jobs. So now we've actually saved them about $300 a month to $500 a month. And they also get equity. They could also now have a thing that they can sell. That's the part where housing is a tool, and you have to make sure that you are getting in when it benefits you. You actually want to buy high or buy when you can. It's always a good time to buy. We can control when we want to sell. We can control if you rent it out. We can control if you need to refinance. But if you're not actually in the game and you don't own anything, it's not really helping you. So this is an example of our local market, which I am so excited to share. So like I said, the Great Recession was it was a totally different and specialized type of case. And these are my buyers who purchased during this COVID, type of time. So first example is my buyers. These are both out of state. We actually we increased their budgets, both of them. So let's say they came and they said their budget was $2,500 a month. And what happens is you don't want to feel like you're missing out. You want to feel like you are getting the thing that you dreamed of. So what I tell people is write down your must-haves, write down your lifestyle, write down if your budget is $500,000, even if this house is $300,000, what do you actually need to make it worthy? So some people, let's say if you're a family, we cannot share a bathroom with our children. We're like, I don't care if this house is the best foreclosure deal, we're not going to share a bathroom with our children. So I had the families write down what is your must-haves for a mortgage in order to get you to move, and then what is your wish list. And my clients did that, and they did end up getting their house that they wanted. It just did not look the way they wanted it. So for example, we increased their budgets by about 50 grand, and they could afford it. We came up with a strategy that worked best for them. We negotiated off the purchase price. So I also want to make sure people understand that the list price isn't necessarily always what people pay. We got closing cost assistance, and they took the leap and they actually trusted us to assist. And I also want to make sure that I'm communicating that purchasing from me or with me doesn't always have to just be in Delaware. So the client on the right is actually the realtor is his representative that I referred to him, because we have a network. And what I do is I interview other realtors to make sure you're delivering the same level of service. If I'm not licensed in that area, I'm going to make sure that I find someone that can service you. But we want to make sure that you feel comfortable and you're not just a number, that you are a person that we will know your story. We will make sure that we work out in your favor. I don't care if you do or don't need the closing cost assistance. We're going to do what's best for you because we're here to work for you. So I want to talk a little bit about the negotiation process. So I don't want to say this weird, but I want to say that playing hardball is not what I mean when I say negotiation. Negotiations are meant to make sure that both parties feel like they're getting the best end of the deal. So real estate is one of the few industries where we actually are collaborators and competitors at the same time. And I want to make sure that you understand we are a business and we also are representatives of you. So our job is to educate, and if you don't feel like you are informed, then keep asking the question. You can never be a bother. It's up to you to make sure you understand and you feel comfortable with it. So this is what we'll go over. When you start shopping, I tend to talk about your discovery process, where instead of you starting with writing down your list of non-negotiables and must-haves, I first say we need to find the right location and property that's going to match what your needs are. So a lot of people come and say, well, I want a basement. If you don't physically have one now, or if you don't physically need a reason to have a underground extra space, but you actually need extra space, that's what we need to know. We need to know how many people need separate bedrooms. How many bathrooms do you physically actually need to separate people? Do you need a flex space, or do your children play in their rooms? Like, not what your wants are, but what is bare minimum that you actually need, because that will help us set up our criteria for the search. I personally will say, you know, it's better to use HomeSnap or having us, once you're pre-approved, we set up a private portal. Number one, because we can actually show you houses that are coming soon and other people can't see. So if you ever see houses that are on the market for like 5 hours or a very short amount of time, it's because we sent it to those people a week before. So private portals are the best for shopping. If you want to just shop on your own, I have the link on my website where you could search for properties on my HomeSnap. It also communicates with me directly, but it's actually connected to MLS. So as the agents are listing them, you will get notified. It's, I'm not going to say it's, I don't want to say it's better than the other ones, but it is, because Bright MLS has a direct link to HomeSnap. The other ones, they're third-party sites, and they may update an hour later, or they may not have all the information. They may estimate the taxes wrong. HomeSnap is the only one that's literally connected to what we as agents use. Once you actually find the right property and we submit our offer and it gets accepted, then we go through the due diligence period of actually finding the attorney that's going to represent you for the deed prep and the title work, and then we're going to start researching, you know, the property, making sure we do the inspections and all that stuff. So the time to purchase your home. The best time to purchase is making sure that we are backing into the date where you need to leave. So the average buyer, a lot of people don't actually stay in their home for forever. They normally stay 3 to 5 years at the most. If there's multiple offers, we'll definitely go through that. But negotiations in the contract, it doesn't really give an actual date, but it says, you know, give a reasonable amount of time. Some sellers want to, if they're getting 20, 30 offers, they may want a couple of days to actually review all of them, compare them, compile them. Remember, these are real people behind this. Some people are at work. Some people are, you know, don't have internet access. Like, especially if I work with a lot of military, they either may be on duty overseas. So just be patient. What I normally say is allow no more than 72 hours. I normally follow up like within 12. But you really want to make sure that you're being realistic, that if there are multiple offers, give them a time to actually meet with the people. Don't assume that it's going directly to the sellers. Sometimes you got to compile it. And if you are negotiating, let's say even if there's not multiple offers, and you, let's say the house is listed for like $295, you offer $275. It may go back and forth until it's a no, until it's like an actual we are not accepting. It's still an opportunity. So I do want to say that it's not in the best interest to submit offers on multiple properties at the same time, because let's say it's Sunday night and you submit an offer for one property and you already submitted one on Saturday. On Monday morning, if they come back and they both accepted your offer, you are liable for both of them. It may be very difficult to get you out of one or the other. So it's best to submit one at a time. So if there's anyone that's a renter, let me know when you're viewing this, because I'll just go back through it really quickly. So let's say your lease ends October 15th. That's just an example. Therefore, if you close on the property September 15th, and you still got to be out by October 15th, your first mortgage payment is due November 1st if you close September 15th. It always is due the following month after. So when you're paying a mortgage, there's actually a 15-day grace period, but it's really complicated because you really have to make sure that's just before fees or before it's reported late. But there's a late fee normally after the 5th day, but they need to receive it. So the first month, what will happen is you'll go to closing. They'll give you a coupon to pay on the day of closing. I would say if you close September 15th, then you're going to want to mail that by no later than October 15th. But no sooner than October 15th. So somewhere between the 15th, October 15th and October 20th, you're going to want to drop that payment in the mail. I don't think most people will have the online portal set up because they have to set up your accounts. So even if you have a mortgage with your bank, I'm not really sure it's actually be set up to pay online. So normally they'll give you a coupon at closing that says mail this here. That's what I would do. I'd also, you know, keep a record of it and then call your mortgage company. If you mail it off by the 20th, call them by the 28th or the 29th just to make sure they've received it. Because if on the first, if they don't, worst case scenario, you can pay over the phone. But the first month, allow them to set it up. So here's the first step. You want to get an underwritten pre-approval. Personally, I will say if your bank is not used to handling real estate closings, banks, financial institutions are different than a real estate transaction. So what happens is if you go online, do like one of those pre-qualification things, you're just entering your information. If you then deal with their lender, sometimes they don't work Saturdays. If you see a house on Saturday at an open house and you need to submit something by Monday at 8 a.m., what's the likelihood that that person sitting at the desk is actually going to be there and will actually take your calls? And you need that. When you have, let's say, inspections or something to negotiate, if we need to talk to your lender, the deadline is the deadline. They don't care about business hours. So I always say get a underwritten pre-approval. Use a local lender who is a servicer, an originator who is used to dealing with mortgages, dealing with attorneys and inspections, because they are going to help you circumvent the big headaches of the underwriting process. Then they will also help you figure out how much money you need to close before you're shopping. And that is a big deal. I have some videos that I can share with you from my YouTube, but basically you need to know your budget before you're looking at houses and not saying what you want to pay, but what is your actual budget. The lender, if your credit score isn't a certain value, they will make you, I don't really know how to say it, but basically they use DU for an automated approval. If your credit score is not 640, it will not give them a number to push out to say what you qualify for. So they will make you go back and say, hey, until you get this right or until we can clear it, we can't even manually underwrite it for you. They also will go over the type of loan products when they run your credit. Some requirements qualify you for certain programs. So what I say is anything below 640, you're bound to really not get the best product or options for you. If your credit score is like 660 to 700, you're basically in the middle range. Anything above 720 or 740, there's really not a big difference. Like some people will say, well, I want an 800, or they already have like a 715 and they want it a little higher. In general, it's really not changing, what you actually qualify for the mortgage. It's not really going to change your points. It doesn't change your interest rate really. If anything, just having higher credit in general is what you want. Good credit, meaning something above 600, just is not good enough. You really want to have adequate and moderate credit. If you went to the doctor's office, the doctor would tell you, hey, you need to complete this form before I even start talking to you. We are the same way. We have an intake form that leads to the buyer consultation, and it's the equivalent of just sitting down, having a conversation, you telling me how we can assist, and it helps me be proactive to research the market for you. And I have a great team of support, and you saw earlier that Britt and Josh were one of my clients, and Britt is now also on my team to assist post-closing. And I also have Kira, my showing assistant. Carol does my marketing. This is my mother. She does property management for us, and these are my transaction coordinators. So we have a very strong team of support that if you need anything, just email us, hello@charmingbellhomes.com, and we will make sure we get back to you. Like I said, I also set up portal sites. So this is the private portal that I set up. This would be HomeSnap. So all of that information is on my website. Here's what I'm going to say. If you go to an open house or new construction, tell them you have a realtor. I will let you read this in your own time, but the for sale by owner is a little bit different. So if we go through the consultation and you feel like you need to go that route, we'll discuss it. But basically, open houses, new construction, tell them you have a realtor, even if it's not me. So once you're in the property, we're going to go over like the flow. How you like it? Was it priced well? We need that feedback from you to help you not get buyer fatigue. Then we're going to go through our multiple offer situation. If we're in that option, we're going to do everything we can. I've done cover letters. I've done appraisal fluctuations. Like we'll pay if the appraisal comes out 10 grand below, we might pay $1,000. Like there's different ways to negotiate. We just need to know if you like the property. Then we're going to go through your due diligence. We're going to have the inspectors go through the process and tell us what is, how things work, where the main shutoffs are. We really want to make sure that we are going through every nook and cranny of this house. Now you don't have your blinders on and you see what really is going on with this house. This is just examples. You could do the request to repairs. You could do seller concessions. You could do contingency periods. This is all just examples of the language and verbiage of the due diligence period. Then we have the appraisal. I've already talked about if it appraises high, if it appraises low, we would negotiate. If it's okay, then we just pay at that price. And if it's below or if it's higher, you automatically have equity. We don't have to tell the sellers that. And again, going through what we would do, we could either renegotiate. You could choose to pay above the appraisal value, or we can cancel the contract. Normally, we just renegotiate. And normally the seller is open to that. Then you have the inspections where they have to make repairs, and sometimes it's based on your appraisal or it's based on your financing. So once you get to that step, we'll go through it. But the final thing is the clear to close. That's another one of those dates on the contract that literally says, now we're ready to move forward. The titles come clear. There's no liens. They're going to tell you what the remaining cash to close is going to be needed. They're going to put all your mortgage docs together. You just got to bring your ID and be ready to sign a bunch of stuff. And we also will do a final walkthrough before, if there was any inspection repairs, we'll go through them and make sure that it's in your, preferred condition. Here's where buyers get stuck. I want to wait one more year because I don't feel ready. Just let us start with a simple conversation. That's all I'm going to say. Because if it works out that you need to wait a year, you need to save more money, we'll know that. But don't just be in your head. Just talk to someone. I'm going to wait till the market crashes. The market really should not crash. It's not normal. So if there are indicators, honestly, if I didn't feel like it was a good time to buy, I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to ever want someone to do something that I wouldn't do. I'm going to go with the first realtor I can think of. That is absolutely fine, and I actually think you should be interviewing realtors anyway. It's whatever you feel comfortable. I did go through that route, and it did not work out for me. I ended up having to work with a realtor that was right for me. So this is an example of a client where the realtor was in my office, but they were looking outside of their jurisdiction or their area. So they referred the clients to me because I service that area. And we can all collaborate and work together. It's really just about what's best for that client, and we're all a team. I don't know if I have enough money saved. It doesn't matter. Well, the lender tells you how much money you need. We have programs that we could work with. We can also get seller's assistance. There are so many options. As long as you pay for your inspections and afford the mortgage and have certain amount of reserves, you're fine. I'm not sure if my credit is good enough. The lender will let you know that. Most lenders give free credit repair options anyway, but they're going to actually tell you in detail what is necessary to get past the underwriting process. Because sometimes when you see things on your consumer report, it's not actually what the lender can see. The lender actually does a tri-merge, and they actually go do a background check called a CAVERS if you're getting a government loan to look at your social security number. So things that you thought may have been off your credit may actually not be off your credit. And I have clients that have had that example. I don't know where to start. I'm just going to continue to hold off until I feel ready. That is absolutely fine. We're going to go at your pace. But I will say the first step, no matter if you're doing it now or 20 years from now, it starts with just having a conversation with someone. So I hope you feel confident in negotiating for the best deal for your particular possibility option. If we have achieved that, please let me know. Right now, I know you may feel excited and you really want to go to the next step, or you may just be a little scared and anxious, which is totally fine. So my job is just to make sure you feel comfortable that when you make that decision, you're ready. And like I said, I know a lot of people, it's a scary process. So you just have to work with whomever you feel comfortable with. I hope that you would feel comfortable working with me. If not, it's totally fine. And I just wish you the best of luck. So I just want to make sure that we are reaching our tribe. We're reaching the people that really want to use us and really help us. And when you choose me, I have your back. You will get professional expertise, my local partners. I have insurance providers, I have vendors, I have lenders, I have attorneys. Like I said, I'm designated to do luxury and military relocation. I also make sure that I deliver the services that I say that I'm going to deliver. I keep my word. And we have a money playbook that you can work with. We have the home buying blueprint. The blueprint will help you keep track of everything that you've learned here. And it's also a little workbook that you can write down your budget. And then once you're under contract, your vendor list will be anyone who can deliver services, like your contractors, any inspectors, the structural engineers, things like that. As you're going through the process, either before or after, we can connect you with whomever service providers you would need. So what's next? The link to my consultation is on my website. Please complete the buyer intake form. If you're pre-approved, you can just send that over as well. But make sure that when you come to the consultation, we'll review your form, we'll review your time frame, we'll review your search. I'll pull up properties to make sure that we are looking at the right area and the right types of homes that fit your budget. Again, if you have any questions, my website is www.charmingbellehomes.com, or you can email us at hello@charmingbellehomes.com, or call or text 302-567-4608. I hope to hear from you.